Hey everybody, my name is Keegan, and I just passed the Accredited Financial Counselor exam. I am an AFC, and I just wanted to share some of my experience with people who either are looking into taking the test or going that route, just because I felt like when I was looking for any information about the exam or the process, there were a lot of resources through AFCPE. However, I didn't really find a lot of people who were kind of in my shoes going through it. So I just wanted to kind of share my thoughts and how the process went for me. So I kind of had a unique beginning as far as like the education goes. I previously had taken, so I went to school for finance. I have a degree in finance, but I had taken all of the certified financial planner education already. So that was one thing I really liked about the AFCPE is that they have an education challenge where if you have done education that counts towards the credits that are required to become an AFC, they will honor those. So it was a little bit of a process I had to go through and request a form where then I filled out which courses I had taken and how those would transfer over to the AFC exam, and then submit that for review. It was a really great process. The people I had talked to at AFCP were super helpful in that whole thing, and it was actually very quick. So once I had the education component completed, I was done with that step, and then I moved on to the experience. So kind of going through it backwards. I know that a lot of people start with the exam, and then they work through the experience or they work through the experience after they do the education before. But I checked out the education, and then I was actually able to complete my experience because my previous position, I had actually worked with clients one-on-one, had tons and tons of hours of actual planning experience, actual financial counseling experience, and I was able to submit similar to how I was able to submit my my different educations that I've done. I was able to get a form and fill out what I had done that would meet the experience requirement. And I know it's not so easy for everybody because actual one-on-one with clients are the best way to get your experience, but you can do it through other types of things, other workshops, or I think even writing blogs. Like those count towards experience, but not at the same level as working one-on-one with clients. So I was actually able to contact my previous employer, and they so generously filled that out and vouched for my experience, and I was able to submit that and also get that approved. So I had within a week, I had completed my experience, I had completed my education, and I was then on to the exam. So I knew that this would be a little bit more of a challenge since I wasn't even exactly sure what was on the exam. So on the AFCP website, they break down kind of the core competencies of the AFC exam. So I started there, and then I started to do some research, like what do people actually study? Because the thing is, unlike any other course I've done, like the CFP or my Series 7, this was unique because there wasn't like a specific textbook that was associated with the actual course or the actual test itself. There were several other textbooks that were kind of preferred or recommended. However, I didn't end up purchasing those. I looked at them on Amazon. I read some reviews on them. And this, since I was kind of in a unique situation where I had done a lot of the education through the CFP before, I was not even actually sure if this would be kind of repeat of information or if it would be helpful to me. So this is kind of what I think might be helpful to you if you are kind of in the same boat. So what I did was I actually purchased, so through the AFCPE website, you can purchase a study guide, which is very, very helpful. I would highly recommend that you purchase a study guide. The study guide breaks down, there's like 30 modules. It's very thorough, breaks down pretty much like all of the different competencies that will be covered in the exam. So I took quite a bit of time to work through that. I stretched it out. I didn't really do it as focused as I probably could have since I was busy with other things. But, over the span of a few months, I worked through the study guide, felt pretty comfortable with the information. I was taking the pre-test, the post-test, and I was like getting passing grades on those. But I still was like, I don't actually know what's on the exam, and I was a little bit stuck. So the other thing that I would recommend, as far as figuring out kind of that next step, or the thing I've struggled with was like there are no like sample questions. Like I don't really know what types of questions will be on the exam. One thing that I would also recommend is that the AFCPE has like courses where you can watch. I think they're like quarterly. They have a great instructor who walks you through and like actually talks through it. They're group courses done via Zoom, and you're able to tune in and you're able to watch them and really just kind of dive deeper into the information, ask questions. That would be the other thing. So in combination with that, the study guide, and then a little bit of like Quizlet and those types of things. I found some flashcards online. Those were helpful, but overall, it was mainly those resources that I was kind of left to study, feel pretty comfortable with the results. I never actually dug into any of the books that they recommended, and instead kind of went at it on my own and was just kind of hoping that would be what was on the exam, because I felt pretty comfortable with a lot of that information. So overall, the process was relatively quick for me, and I scheduled my exam, went to the testing center. So it's a 3-hour exam. There are 150 questions. They're technically like 165, but 15 don't actually count because they're like pre-test questions they're kind of testing. And I ended up passing the exam. So it was a success. And as far as the type of questions that were asked, since I was not sure what type of questions they'd be asking, whether they'd be like word problems or vocabulary focused. Side note, I do recommend following the AFCPE Facebook group. It was really helpful. There were a lot of people who would, post like, I'm having difficulty with this question, and people would respond, or people would share their experiences when they passed, or ask for advice. People are always sharing kind of updates about their journey. That's a very helpful thing to join as well. So I would look into that. And back to the exam. So I would say that there was a very fair mix of more, simple questions where it was like purely like if you understand this concept or vocabulary, the answer was pretty immediate, pretty obvious. And then there were quite a few questions that were more like word problem focused, where you actually had to use the equations, use your calculator, and dig into that. And of course, those are a little bit more challenging, but overall, like I kind of went through the exam and like I was marking or flagging ones that I was a little bit unsure of, and there were at least like 20 or 30 that I was like, this is like, I'm kind of going between answers. There were a lot of questions where, of course, like 2 answers, I was like, I don't even know if there is a right answer, because in financial planning, a lot of times, like, there is not a right or a wrong thing, and it was kind of like, what would you do as a financial counselor? And I responded how I would do it. Wasn't sure if that was actually the right way to do it, because I felt like both of the answers would be acceptable. But that's kind of how every exam goes. Overall, it was successful. So now I'm waiting for the exam results to come through into my portal. It'll show up with the experience, with the education, and then I should be good to go. So just kind of wanted to share my experience and kind of how smooth and pleased I was with the entire process. It was kind of just my end where I took a little bit more time stretching out the study process, and I definitely didn't need to, but would highly recommend that you seek out the AFC designation, that you go through the AFCPE. They're very organized, everything is up to date, and they're very easy to communicate with. I've emailed Jared several times, and he's been very helpful. So I just wanted to share my experience and hopefully help someone else out that's going through the same process. So thanks for tuning in.